Each of you, maybe 10 minutes, 4 to 40 minutes, and then questions, or 8 minutes is fine. So, do you want to start first? So, just introduce, share with us, what you think are the important things. Oh, all right, sure. So, maybe you represent the members. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, you can share.
All right. Well, you say 8 to 12 minutes?
10.
8 to 10.
Yes.
No.
Too long? Or we can take more time. Questions. Take questions, yeah. Maybe not everybody know who you are. I think we know Matt and Jeff a little more. So, do you want to quickly introduce yourself to us?
I'd be happy to.
Yes.
My name's Scott Sanford. I'm in the middle of my third term as Representative Lege in the House of Representatives. I serve the area of McKinney, Melissa, Prosper, Anna, Salina, and Princeton. Do I have any constituents in the room? All right. Got a few. And so thank you very much for the invitation to come tonight. It's a privilege to be here, to be a part of it. And I thought I was going to go last, and so I kind of oriented myself that way to try to change the direction a little bit. I will let you know that McKinney is new to the Robin Hood recapture, McKinney ISD, and I believe in 2015 we had a Robin Hood bill of $300,000. Not too bad, but the latest one now is $3.5 million. So it certainly changed a great deal for McKinney ISD. So ending recapture and having property tax reform is probably high on all of our agendas. I thought I'd share with you a little bit about what do we do that's not necessarily legislative. And I know that many of you in here are believers or people of faith, and I thought I'd share with you a little bit of things that we do around that in Austin and back at home. I happen to have the privilege of co-chairing the Texas Legislative Prayer Caucus, and of which all of these guys are very active in. And it's new. We just started in February, and we champion religious liberties, and of course, just faithful living amongst the legislators. Also, let's see, we just kicked that off in February.
Today? Last year.
Last year.
That's awesome.
So we're right on the heels of our one-year anniversary with the Texas Legislative Prayer Caucus. It is a part of a network of other state prayer caucuses. So there are about 28 states now that have legislative prayer caucuses that are part of a nationwide network. And the purpose is, of course, to encourage each other in the faith, but into effective leadership, moral leadership with our constituents, but also so that we can share best practices as it relates to things like religious liberty legislation amongst the states. And then also work with the Congressional Prayer Caucus as they legislate and as they deliberate. We've seen a lot of progress in that area in the last year. When we are in session, we have weekly Bible studies through a ministry called Capital Commission. That ministry is they see the legislature as a mission field. And so they have a minister, his name is Scott Wall, and every week they buy us lunch, have all the legislators together, and then we have Bible study and prayer time together. Now, those are then every legislative session we have something called the Texas Prayer Breakfast. And it's a large gathering where all of Austin comes together, as well as some from out of town. So we have lobbyists, it's bipartisan, and it's a morning full of prayer, worship, and of encouragement. We do that every session. Last session we had about 2,000 people at the Austin Hilton for that prayer breakfast. And then what we don't mention is that there are spontaneous prayer gatherings, kind of as we feel needed. If something intense comes up, we'll just sometimes gather together and pray. And of course, we're always rushing back on the weekends to attend worship services or teach Bible study classes or volunteer in the children's programs. So you'll find faith is amongst this delegation is important, not just a priority, but an overarching. That's a core value of who we are. It's even more than a value; it is the central value of who we are. So I think you can find that. I don't know. I hope you find that encouraging anyway. But it does impact our public policy outlook. And so as you look through Scripture, you see that government's role primarily is to punish the evildoer. And so you'll see a focus on justice, and then also you'll see a focus on rehabilitation, because God was so patient with us, right? And so faithful to us. And so we look to not only to punish the evildoer, but to see, are there any that will come around? Are there any that will be redeemed? And then try to craft policies that will encourage them to do so. Who's holding the colored cards?
Oh, okay.
I'll just keep going.
Oh, that happened. Okay. All right. Yeah. We can move on.
One more thing. I don't know where this was. Well, just one last thing. In the prison system, you're going to see a lot of work with conservative Republicans and in a bipartisan effort, I would guess, to give what they call right on crime, to give prisoners the best opportunity for rehabilitation and to move policy in that direction, if at all possible, while not endangering the public. One of the best programs that we've seen in the state system is a theology training or seminary program. So many times it's the private sector or the faith-based sector that provides many of the best solutions to state policy questions and state policy challenges.
Thank you. So, do you want to?
Dixon left with the red card. All right.
No, I'll get you on the timer.
Matt Shaheen, and I'm honored to serve with these gentlemen. I represent the west part of Plano in Farmwood Valley, commonly referred to as God's country, or at least I try to refer to it as that. I would actually like to talk about politics. I think we're going to talk a lot about policy, but I'd like to talk about politics. All of us are very, very thrilled about this club. We're all very excited. We've actually been talking about you for quite some time. We are, I think nobody's going to argue, very blessed to live in the state of Texas. Our population grew 400,000 people last year. We're a state of over 28 million people now. Half of that was birth, half of that was people moving to our state. The economic growth is phenomenal. We're the 10th largest economy in the world. I think it's like $1.6, $1.7 trillion is our economy. God is blessing the state of Texas. There are people with different ideas that don't understand why we're doing so well. They have a big D by their name on the back. And they are coming after Texas. And they're specifically coming out of for Collin County. Each of us up here, all our county officials and others, have Democrat candidates. And what I want to make sure we all understand is they have a very long-term view. So they may or may not really have expectations of winning this November. I don't know, maybe some do. But they take a very long-term view. And their perspective is, well, we got all these people moving in from California and Illinois and all these high tax, high regulation states. We can turn blue. I don't know if any of you follow social media, but they actually have a hashtag. It's called the Blue Wave, or Blue Tide, or those types of things. And so it could fundamentally change the blessings that we've been enjoying. And that's why we're really very excited that you all are here. So what we are committed to do is this general election in November, we want to work hand in hand with each and every one of you. We're going to be out and campaigning, and we very much want you to be by our side. We want to be by your side. We want to do coffees. We want to knock on doors in your neighborhoods, mailers, all those types of things. What we are going to do and what we're committed to do is to grow our base this November and this 2018. You are a big vehicle for that. Your community is a perfect fit for the Republican Party. Many of you love the Lord. Your family is very important. Education is a priority. You are an exact fit. And let me just end by talking about the people that we're fighting against. Last week, a majority of Democrats in Washington, D.C. voted against a bill that required a little baby, a little boy or girl who survived an abortion. They voted against a bill requiring that little baby to get health care, to be sent to a hospital. That's the kind of people that are targeting us. This week, a majority of those Democrat senators in Washington, D.C. voted against a ban on abortions after 20 weeks. We got rid of abortions in the state of Texas after 20 weeks because that little baby feels the pain. This is who we're fighting against. We need each other. So we want to work with you passionately this November. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you've done. You guys have been awesome. Plano City Council, and we want to have a big impact. So thank you all for being there, and I'm looking forward to working with you in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here tonight. My name is Jeff Lege. I'm the state representative for House District 67. And if you're wondering where that is, you are in the heart of it right now. Plano, Allen, down into Richardson, a little portion of the city of Dallas to the south. And I want to echo what Matt said. And I hope that you won't just hear us say this, but that you'll listen to this and grasp it tonight. Because if there's one thing that we want you to leave with tonight, it's this message that Matt just so wonderfully communicated to you. And that's how thankful we are for you. It's like an army that needs reinforcements. And the reinforcements have come. And we are grateful for you. Please know that. And we have a lot of work to do in our state, in our country, and yes, here in Collin County. I'll never forget that I had the opportunity to intern in the White House in 2004. And we each intern got to go in and spend a little bit of time with then President George W. Bush. And I'll never forget, at that time, President Bush, I got like 30 seconds with him. It seemed like 10 minutes, right? About 30 seconds. And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from Plano." He said, "That's Collin County." I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's Collin County." He said, "No Republican will ever win the White House without Collin County."
Right.
I don't know if Donald Trump knows where Collin County is, but you know this.
He does.
He does. Echoing what Matt said, how many of you watched the State of the Union the other night? What a clear illustration of the deep divides in this country. How many of you saw your paychecks go up this week when you opened your paycheck? Did you know that 65% of Americans, because of the tax bill passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump last month, 65% of Americans at least saw a bump in their weekly or their biweekly paychecks, not to mention the tax benefits that they'll get when they file their taxes at the end of the year. As Matt said, Democrats, all of them in the Senate, were high-fiving each other on the floor of the Senate this week when they voted to be able to terminate a baby who can feel pain at 21 weeks. They didn't just vote on it quietly and walk away. They were high-fiving each other on the floor of the Senate. And typically, they've known that they can stay away from Collin County because Collin County's red, right? We're deep red. We're bold red, proudly. But they're coming for us. They're coming for us. And oftentimes, they're coming for us masquerading as Republicans.
Yep, that's true. Yep.
They come for us masquerading as Republicans. We have elected officials in this county who claim to be Republicans and vote like liberal Democrats.
You're trying to.
And it's your job. That's why you're such a welcome breath of fresh air to hold all of us. Jeff Leach, hold me accountable to what I tell you I'm going to do, to the promises, the commitments I make to you when I'm running for office, and to hold me accountable when I go to Austin and vote on your behalf. That includes your state legislators, your congressmen, your president, your city council members, your school board members. And we are grateful for the reinforcements that you've brought us. I want to encourage you to enlarge and to grow this group. the harvest is plentiful, and right now the workers are few, but the workers are growing, right?
That's right.
And so we're in this together. We can talk about how well the state of Texas is doing, and we are doing very well. Very well. We should be very proud of what we've built here in the state of Texas. We do have our challenges. Education being at the top of that list. Robin Hood, as Nancy so wonderfully put, we have to address it. We do. We've got to come together to address these challenges. And I'm confident that with us banding together in the next 2 to 4 years, that we can not only protect Collin County and the state of Texas for us here, but for generations to come. I'm a product of Plano Public Schools. I was born and raised 2 miles away from where you're sitting right now. My children are growing up here in Collin County, and I'm confident that when I look back here, when my kids are grown and they're raising their families in Collin County, that Collin County will still be red because of you, because of us working together. Thank you for being here today.
These guys are really good. So I'm Van Taylor. I'm the state senator here in Collin County. If you don't know where Senate District 8 is, you're in the middle of it. To steal that slide. I was elected to the Texas House in 2010. Actually, I was born in Dallas, 7th generation Texan. Took a commission in the Marine Corps after college. Served in the Marine Corps and got my MBA from Harvard. And my last day of Marine Reserve Unit duty, I was checking out and thought I'd go to the Pentagon, but I never got there because that day was 9/11. Watched the Pentagon burn my own eyes. Made a promise to make a difference. A little over a year later, I was leading the very first platoon into Iraq for my brigade. They put the reservists out front because they know what to do that. Everybody laughs. And accomplished every mission, brought every man home to the families, married the girls, sent me a letter every day I was there. And Ann and I are still walking into the sunset as the credits roll. Was elected to the Texas House in 2010 and then Texas Senate in 2014. And I will say Collin County is very lucky to have a very functional delegation. We work very well together. We carry each other's bills, we help each other, give each other ideas, give each other intel. And it's a deep relationship, and it's a good relationship actually within our communities, with our school boards, with our elected officials. And I'm very, very proud to work with these guys. I'm going to miss the opportunity to serve with them.
Let me interrupt. Van, as our senator, has led our delegation very well. Very, very well.
So, and certainly, politics is a team sport. And a lot of times, we watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, we look at the quarterback, but, if it wasn't for the lineman, the quarterback gets sacked. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm saying I'm the quarterback. But actually what I'm saying is we're the quarterbacks and you're the lineman. Because without you guys, we'd get sacked. We would never get elected. We are the outgrowth of you. Your activity, your perseverance, your participation in electoral policies are the reason that people like us can get elected. And then, let me say this, government matters. If you think it doesn't matter, I'll do some contrast between, and Collin County is a great place to see how government does matter, because I watch companies come in all the time. Actually got a frantic phone call tonight from a company saying, we need to talk to you right away, Senator, we want to move to Collin County. And companies all the time come in, and they all come from one place. They all come from blue states. They talk about, but they do. They all come from blue states, and one of them actually described themselves, we're blue state refugees. We're trying to get away from high taxes, high regulation. But why are they blue? I mean, what are they trying to get away from? I mean, the state Texas, so the state of Texas, our government cost, or take our total budget divided per capita, is about $3,700 a head. California is about $6,500 per head. New York is $7,500 a head. Connecticut is $7,700 a head. Rhode Island is $8,500 a head. I mean, if you're trying to put a business together or put food on the table, it is hard to feed the government and give them so much more of what you're making than what you're making. you know, I mean, in 1900, 10% of US, 8% of US GDP went to government. It's now 42% and climbing. And it's worse in the blue states. That's just an average American number. It's much worse in the blue states. And then they're making choices not just to raise taxes, but they're going into debt. Their indebtedness levels are frightening. They're not funding their pension funds, I mean, to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, and they're not building roads. Texas between 2002 and 2012 built 5,700 lane miles of state highway. California, that same decade, built 11 miles of state highway. 11 in a decade. That is a result of the voters. The voters send people to Sacramento who then say, I'm not going to vote for roads. I'm going to vote for higher taxes. I'm not going to put money in pension fund. I'm going to vote for more debt. What we really need is we need a bigger welfare state. So California has 12% of the U.S. population and 36% of the welfare recipients. So the welfare state is driving that. The welfare state is driving the state of California and the choices that they're making. But again, that is not, you can blame the politicians in Sacramento, but it starts with the voters and who they choose to send. And I'll give you kind of an unbelievable, but the majority leader for the California Assembly recently filed a bill to send to jail for 6 months any person who serves a plastic straw to a patron without them asking for it. For 6 months. Wow. Now, I don't know about you, but if you care about the working man, if you care about the person that's serving the straw, I don't think that 6 months in jail is just, I mean, I don't know how you can look at that and say this is good legislation that's going to help the state of California. And certainly with all the businesses, and actually, give you another incredible stat. 2 weeks ago, Dallas News Journal published a 400-page study of California that estimated that over the past several years, 9,000 different businesses had either decided not to go to California or relocate out of California. The number one place they're coming is here in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
The choices that we're making, the choices to keep taxes low, to build roads, to educate our children. I mean, over half of general revenue funds the funds that we control as legislators, go to education in the state of Texas. That is a priority for us. We are building roads. We're building more roads. That is a priority for us. We are funding our pension funds properly. Those choices are an outgrowth of your choices of who you send to represent you in Austin. And so I'm grateful to be part of a winning strategy because I think if you're not building roads and you're not putting money in your pension funds and you're raising debt and you're raising taxes, I just don't see how that's a winning combination. I don't see how that is going to win in the long term. And at some point, someone's going to have to turn around and say, stop, enough. But I don't know how many jobs they're going to lose until they finally realize that it's too late. There's no one left to pay for the thing. But that is where they're headed. I'm grateful that's not where we're headed. But that is a direct result of your guys' work and your hard effort. So look forward to answering your question.
Thank you so much. So let's open up for question and answer. I would just add one sentence. I want to echo what they have shared. It's so important that we keep Collin County red, right? I mean, all of us, just compare with Dallas. We are blue, and we are red. How many people want to move to Dallas County, right? Why are we all here? So we need to share with our friends, our neighbors, our soccer moms, when you run into them. Why do we love here? Why do we like real estate here? It has everything to do with our policy, right? And I just want to share with you, I'm so, thankful for all of them. They serve Collin County, so faithfully, and we can live here so well because of them. So help them always get reelected, right? Help them. So now, open up to your questions. Sue.
Can you explain to this group the importance and what's the potential for what's going to happen in 2020 when they redraw the district lines?
Wow. Did everybody hear the question? Yeah? Okay. That's hard to...
Sure. Well, I mean, redistricting is important. I will say that Collin County is very blessed as a county to have basically the county the congressional district and the state senate district are very, very similar. We're very lucky to have a very compact, thoughtful district, and arguably our Senate congressional district are two of one of the top three most compact districts in the state. And certainly I'm a big advocate for continuing to have that compactness, just for the simple fact that it makes it governable. I mean, if you look at some of these incredibly gerrymandered, and they're Republican and Democrat, Republicans, and actually real challenges to redistricting usually have very little to do with how compact districts are. But those are very difficult to understand and to govern and for people to be an effective representative. It's very easy for me to be an effective representative because I have 11 school districts as a state senator. I have 11 cities. I have 1 county commissioner's board. I have a very understandable. It's very easy for me to describe where if you're in my district or not. My lines are simple.
But what I would like for you guys to bring out is if they try to redraw the lines, they're going to break up Collin County. That's what I'm hearing that they're wanting to do, is to break up, thereby diluting our redness and diluting the Republican base here.
So just Collin County will, right now, a congressional district in the United States is about 750,000. A Senate district is 850,000. Those are going to bump up 50 or 100,000 across the country, across the state. Collin County will still be is an appropriate political subdivision to be the basis for a congressional district and a Senate district.
You don't think they'll break it up?
This, in the capacity that I will hopefully serve the people of the 3rd Congressional District, I will fight very hard to make sure that we continue to have a compact and thoughtful congressional district that is easy to understand, where I can represent a discrete constituency. I think you're going to draw legal fair maps first and foremost, but there is no reason to break up Collin County. I would be very much opposed to that, and that dilutes it dilutes the political power of the people that are in the district, but it also makes it much more difficult to govern. It makes it harder to have effective representation.
Well, you're thinking logically.
That seems to go out the window.
They want to destroy our power that we've got here in this county to elect, to really affect the outcome of elections.
Sure. Well, for the last redistricting, it is my understanding, and I wasn't in the room, I just kind of woke up one morning and saw the maps and was happy about them, but it is my understanding that Senator Shapiro and Congressman Johnson wanted to have the district, broadly speaking, wanted to have the districts that we ultimately live under, and I think they've been very successful. And so I would like to see them continue in the form that they're in. Speaking specifically, more broadly speaking, Texas will pick up 2 to 4 new congressional seats because of the success that we're having as a state, and it will be at the expense of blue states, which are not having success because they're driving jobs out, and they're not even bothering to call them when they leave. It is shocking to talk to companies that leave and say, when you announce that you're leaving, did anybody call? And they say, nobody called. The governor didn't call, the senator didn't call, the congressman didn't call, the county judge didn't, no one called, no one cared.
Right.
Oh, Matt.
As a 6th generation Texan, they say that God bless Texas, and he did. And when I see you men up there, I know that he did.
Amen.
Amen. When I look around at my close friends here, Lily, Frank, and Henry, Hank, and on, the people that co-read with me, I can't, it's hard for me to express the way I feel about this. They are just, no. So, now I participated in some focus groups with the folks here, and what's important to them. And I remember one of the things that I felt was very important to them dealt with education. And one of the items that was brought up was quotas in higher education enrollment as something that this group doesn't like.
We don't like it either.
Yeah, they see it as the opposite of rewarding. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. It hurting hard achievement, hurting hard work, not rewarding achievement. All the hard work that goes into the education and all these efforts, and they're being not rewarded for it. Is there anything that we can do at the state level, either in the Senate or in the House, to bring certain rules back that do away with preference and dealing with ensuring that the highest quality candidates are enrolled in higher education?
The answer is yes. It's what's intended to be anti-discriminatory is extremely discriminatory.
Yes.
So we are looking at, when we're talking about higher education specifically in Texas, there's a number of reforms that we need to address with respect to higher education, and this is just one of them. And I so appreciate our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who has been looking at specifically on the rate of tuition increases, which by its very nature is discriminatory as well, because a lot of people can't afford higher education in Texas. And these tuition, the rates of tuition are, I know I'm going off on a rabbit trail, but this is just as important. And so we will continue to look at these issues. I don't have the specific answer, but we agree with you as a delegation. I'm speaking to you guys. We agree with you. We just have to work at the state level with our federal counterparts, our future congressmen here, to ensure that we do the right thing.
I just want to make a statement. I see y'all a lot at a lot of functions. I feel so blessed to live here in Collin County in Texas, having you four men be who y'all are, that you walk with the Lord first and foremost, that you're conservative, truly conservative men. I feel very blessed as a father and a husband and a person that lives in this great state that y'all four are representing. I know there's a lot of other people that represent us, but y'all four, I see y'all all the time. I know y'all are truly care about family values and conservative, and I know, Van, you're extremely conservative, and I appreciate that. And I want to say one other thing. You know, I'm out here walking around, and I'm knocking on doors, and people are saying, well, you really don't have to worry about the Democrats. You might have to worry about them in 4 years. But if we sit back in our easy chairs right now, we don't dig in, we don't put our armor on, we don't keep our swords sharp, those 4 years will be on us quick, and we're going to be blindsided. We got to dig in hard now. We can't wait to 4 years and take this easy approach that we don't have to worry about it. We got to worry about them right now. They entered races. They entered races for a reason. They want to see how we're doing things. It's like a war. You figure out what the other team's doing, and then you know how to attack them.
So the best question all night.
Yeah, that's good.
So I want to thank y'all. God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
Another mic.
Yeah, I'm not going to compliment you guys. I know what I think of you. I've been in your offices too much. I've broken one hand, sacrificed one knee, and given up many pairs of shoes for you guys. I want you to address the leadership change that we are going to undergo in the House, and how that hopefully will affect, how should I say, a smoother flow of good legislation through the state house that's been coming from the Senate, and also the need for you guys during session to hear from people like this all the time in terms of dealing with the fact you guys deal with the professional and political class the rest of the time.
I'll start with these guys formulate their opinion. I hope that whoever they choose as speaker in addition to that, the person, and I know there's going to be a lot of thought about the person. There's a lot of discussion about the person. And whoever they pick will be imperfect. There's going to be something, there's going to be some issue set, they're not right on, whatever it may be. But I hope that they focus a little bit on trying to make sure that power is restored back to the members, right? So, in a couple, two things I would say that are relatively straightforward to do that. One is allowing bills to go onto the floor of the Texas House without having to go through the committee process if there's overwhelming support, right? So if a bill has 3/5 of the members sign on to it, it doesn't have to go through the committee process. It doesn't have to go through the calendars process. It just comes to the floor. And so I think, that is putting power to the, taking the power from leadership and giving it to the members.
Can that be done as a rule?
That could be done as a rule change. And it's something that they're in a position to say, we're only going to elect someone that agrees to that rule change, right? So, and that's one idea. The second one is giving the members more power in committee assignments. Right now, there are about 450 committee assignments in the Texas House. Seniority assignments, the members are choosing about 100 or 120. And so, taking the non-procedural committees and putting those on member choices and letting the members make more choices. So right now, you make 5, make it 7, allow up to a second choice. Taking calendars, make that a, well,
You're talking to us now. They're not tracking with you.
well, but giving the members more power, because at the end of the day, who you're going to pick is imperfect. So why empower them with so much power to see those?
Good point.
Would you like to stand up on that a little bit from the House side?
Yes.
It's a fantastic question. I've got good news and bad news for you. Good news is there's a lot of opportunity for the House to be much more productive than it has been. First of all, we can have committee assignments done much earlier and begin those hearings so that when we can constitutionally hear and debate items on the floor of the House, we can get off to a rip-roaring start. And there's no sense keeping us around till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because we haven't done our work early enough in session. Nothing good happens after about 9 o'clock in the House. Right. And so productivity in that sense. The other thing related to productivity is we'd like to have a speaker that finally engages the conservative representatives to be a part of the legislative process. I've got a list of fantastic bipartisan bills that I've authored in the last 3 legislative sessions. They're absolute no-brainers. But and all of these guys have as well. And because we're too conservative, we either can't get them out, or we have to fight and scratch and claw and go outside the system to try to get you guys involved or to get the press involved to bring other sorts of pressure to the process so that our bills could come out eventually. But just think about the brain power that you've heard amongst these two guys that aren't yet fully engaged in the legislative process as it could be. They ought to be leaders. They ought to be chairmen of committees going forward. And so that would help with productivity and effectiveness. Now, the bad news is simply this. There is a concerted effort amongst the same group that has been in power, if you will, the moderate Republicans. That's been gracious. To put together another 55-21 type of scenario. They're already active in that. There's really not even much hiding behind the veil on that anymore. Just know that's going on. That's why the primary elections are so important across the state. Stay engaged with those as we go.
Oh, you want to follow up?
Well, I just had a question about the Senate Education Committee that Nancy was speaking about earlier. Do you all have a timeline on when that committee is going to present any type of legislation or any type of ideas on finance reform?
The commission is charged with reporting back in December of this year. Certainly before next session convenes in January.
I want to ask a futuristic question to Senator Ranchero. When you go to Washington, have you given thought, can you share with us what kind of committee assignment you would want to see?
That's a great question.
I have given some thought to that. There are 24 different committees to be on. But at the present time, Rob, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be thinking about block walking tomorrow. You're welcome to join me. And then on Saturday, we've got a block walk, and we'll be walking out here at Plano Precinct 32. So for anybody that wants to go out and talk to voters, which I just say as a candidate, there's nothing better than going out and talking to voters and hearing one-on-one what they care about, what issues are important to them, and what ideas on which committees they think you should join. So,
Oh, hi.
Yeah, so, Harvey had a big impact on the state, and that's going to affect the next legislative session. What is that going to do to being able to rework taxation and the revenue flow? Are we going to be able to get any kind of relief next year with all the money that's going to be headed to Harvey relief?
There's been a lot of numbers that have been thrown out as far as the economic impact. Right after the hurricane hit, there were estimates of damage to the Texas economy of $150 billion. I mean, it was significant. Actually, if you look at both the economy of Texas and our unemployment rate, we've actually done quite a bit of recovery. But the reality is, it's still going to be a two-whammy hit. One is the property values will be lower, which has an impact on revenues. And then secondly, we're most likely going to have to deploy dollars. Now, the good news is, every session, there's always a group of people within the legislature that wants to raid our rainy day fund. So Texas state government has something called the rainy day fund. And we are always under pressure to spend money out of that. And it gets even crazy where they'll start throwing like really popular ways to fund really popular programs out of the rainy day fund. Sometimes they do it just to make the conservatives look bad. Of course, I'm not joking. But that is like over $11 billion strong. And we have another fund. I want to say it's 90, maybe even $100 million just for this kind of disaster. But the reality is, our next session in 2019 is going to have some challenges financially because of Harvey. I will tell you, the response has been just crazy great. I mean, I think all the roads, there was hundreds of miles of roads that were damaged, and I think in a couple of weeks they were all back up. I think all but maybe one or two schools are back up and functioning. And I'll tell you, as a side note, it was just amazing the response of just everyday Texans. I was reading at one point there were 80,000 meals served every day by volunteers. I don't know how they come up with these numbers, but I read somewhere there was literally like 35,000 to 40,000 volunteers. The faith community, I think, was about 75% of that. Guys like Jeff Lege that grabbed the boat and actually drove down there and saved people and served people. So that was just it showed the nation how great Texas is. But to answer your question, we're going to have a challenge in 2019. Maybe not as bad as we had thought, but there's going to be an impact. I will say one other thing. I'm sorry. The governor and lieutenant governor were phenomenal. You want to talk about leaders during a tragedy, and they did great. They worked really well with President Trump. President Trump called us out during the State of the Union last night. So Texas is going to be fine, though.
Yeah, just to echo on what Matt said, we have been, since I've been in the legislature every session, as you put very well, we've been pushed and prodded and compelled to use the rainy day fund on non-emergency expenditures. And we as conservatives have held a lot, good expenditures, but non-emergency expenditures. And we conservatives have held the line and said, no, that's not the purpose of the rainy day fund. Do you know what the purpose of the rainy day fund is?
The catastrophic.
A rainy day fund. Hurricane Harvey. What's the storm that came right after Hurricane Harvey that came up the, I forget the name of the storm, but remember it turned. If it had turned left and hit Houston again, it would have been catastrophic and devastating for our state. We would have had to possibly completely deplete our rainy day fund. And so we will, I'm fairly confident that we will need to use some of the rainy day fund. And you know what? That's okay. Because that is why we were strategic in 1989 when they formed is that right? When they formed the Economic Stabilization Fund? 86.
Authorized. So it's voted in 87, and then the vote itself was in November.
Then was the House.
So in foresight and wisdom of our leaders back in those days, they created this fund for this day. So we will have to tap the rainy day fund next session. We just need to do so in a fiscally responsible way.
Amen.
If you hadn't held the line, you wouldn't have it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Staying on the rainy day fund.
Report is here.
Staying on the rainy day fund, how are those funds invested? And what's been the return on those funds? Do you have any idea?
There are, I don't know that, well, you probably know. Go ahead.
When the rainy day fund was started, it was just a cash instrument. It was a very small balance.
Yeah.
It was less than $1 billion for a long time. Then it started just going up, and when it started going up, it appeared to me and to other legislators, we need to invest that money at a higher rate of return, but still maintain a relatively strong degree of liquidity. So there is, most of it is in sort of about 60% of it. I'm using rough numbers to help you this, but 60% of it is in 7-day paper, basically, so very liquid, rolls very quickly. And then the rest of it is in sort of a 2-year term, trying to earn about 1%, 120 basis points. Again, the object is capital preservation, not to get a great return. We have, our teacher retirement system is about $120 billion by comparison. That's trying to earn a return, right? We're trying to make money with that. That's invested like the pension fund. The rainy day fund, well, we have, and I think it's important to point out that I passed a bill on this in 2015 to increase a little bit of money, like $1 billion or $2 billion, to be more aggressively invested. And then last session, we increased that to be $1 billion or $2 billion more. And then the object behind that was to not, and this is the key thing, to not stress out the rating agencies. The rating agencies have cited our rainy day fund as a reason we have a AAA bond rating. And so if we took that and put it all in stocks,
Right.
I think the rating agencies would say, you know what, that doesn't feel like a liquidity fund anymore. That feels like an investment fund. We don't really think that enhances the credit of your state and the obligations that you've undertaken. So there was, let's do a little bit, let's put our toe in the water, let's see what the rating agencies say. And then once they bless that, then you said, okay, we'll do a little bit more, but we're not going to go whole hog.
Because I know Hayden was trying to increase that, not substantially, but continue to go to that trough and invest a little more. And
we are doing that, and that has been good, prudent investment. I mean, but at the same time, you want to make sure you have liquidity. The other thing I'll point out the rating fund is that it's really, really hard to spend $5 billion in a day. I mean, it's just. Well, I would say even with Harvey, you say, hey, we got to spend $5 billion. It's going to take you 2 years to spend.
Yeah. I sat in one day's education hearing. They were trying to spend 4 during the special session in one day.
It would take.
So you got to
State
watch.
government is $100 billion a year, but that's only $330 million a day.
I have a question. President Trump has talked about reducing restrictions on drilling and exploration. I want to know how that might impact our Texas economy with the regulations pulled back and opportunities for more exploration. Did I stump you? I'm
No,
sorry.
well, I mean, it sort of goes, I mean, so backing up, kind of fun Texas history fact. So most states that came into the Union came under the Northwest Ordinance of 1785. Texas as a republic did not. It cut its own deal. So Texas, they were a republic that said, no, when we become a state, we're going to retain all of our own lands. We're not going to hand them over to the federal government. And so we actually own our own lands. We own our own waterways. So the water, the land underneath a waterway, a lake, a river, a stream, and we actually own our own coastline. And so because of that, we have been growing our minerals. And so we actually didn't need the federal government to help us with that.
It might just help our oil companies.
That's a whole other story. But anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But unquestionably, America becoming more energy independent is a good thing strategically for our country. I mean, you want to be energy independent. You do not want to be reliant on other countries. And if it's your own resources, then you get to enjoy the fruit. You get to enjoy that unlocking that wealth that's in the ground, and then you can make that money and then you invest it in something else and expand your economy. I think. Actually, I will say I really enjoyed watching leftists in New York and the New York Times say, "Well, Texas is just lucky because they have oil." I said, "No, we're smart enough to get out of the ground. You guys can't."
That's right.
Anyone has more questions?
I'll add on to that, just with the founding of Texas, the way that it was done, and what you just explained, that's really important. How does that get impacted by things like the UN and the waters of the U.S. and all those things that they were trying to bring all this extra government regulation? And with the founding of Texas and those things being the way that they were, being different than the rest of the states, does that protect us more, or is it still just the UN and what we let in, we should never let in, we need to kick them through the curb, but that's beside the point.
Well, Texas does enjoy greater control and autonomy because of the way that we entered into the union by controlling our own lands. And I mean, and actually, if you look at the permanent school fund is funded by land, the permanent university fund, which I've got to tell is my favorite acting joke. So 1/3 of the revenue goes to Texas A&M and 2/3 goes to the University of Texas. Does everybody know why that is? Yeah, because the Aggies got to pick first. The real history behind that is actually even more bizarre. The state legislature gave 1 million acres to Texas A&M. Texas A&M was writing a check every year. They got tired of writing the check. They tried to give all 1 million acres to the University of Texas. The University of Texas system said, "No, you're going to pay us for it." And they said, "Yeah, we'll write you a check." And then they said, "You're going to pay us for it, but we're only going to take 2/3." And then 2 years later, they found oil on the university lands. So
All right. Oh, one last question.
The last question, guys. What's the mechanism for property tax reassessments in the wake of Hurricane Harvey? Is it completely up to the local, local municipalities, or does the state have any oversight to say, "Hey, you guys need to reassess these people because some people have a complete total loss"?
Sorry, guys. So I just came from a hearing in Houston on this. It started at 1. I left early so I could be here tonight. So today, under state law, the way it works is that any subdivision that has a natural disaster can decide on its own volition to reappraise. So far, after Harvey, only 9 subdivisions in the state have decided to reappraise, and there are probably 200 that were affected. So, and I heard a lot of heartbreaking stories about families who had lost everything and had to pay taxes like they'd lost nothing. And they were really horrified and angry and upset and said, "I can't believe these government cares more about its pocket than it cares about me having lost my home and all my belongings, and my life is devastated. I want a reappraisal." I actually passed legislation last session that had mandatory reappraisal if there have been greater than, I believe it was a 10% loss as appraised by FEMA. And that passed the Senate unanimously. And unfortunately, it didn't make it out of the House.
Tell us why it didn't make it out of the House.
Senator Taylor, who lobbied against that bill? Please tell us.
Seriously, name names.
I'm not going to.
Okay.
Jeff, did you want to name names?
Yeah, come on, Jeff. Yeah, your local governments across the state lobby very hard and very diligent. Doesn't that make sense to you that if you lose more than 10% of the value, you should be afforded a reappraisal, which is essentially what your bill did? Local government said, whoa, local control. Yeah. Local control.
Mayor?
No comment. I'm not going to name names. But
Oh, he's trying to get advantage of
and here's the problem. I want to bring up a point that Dan talked about earlier. That bill, at the very least, and that's just one of many we can talk about, that bill at the very least should have reached the floor of the Texas House for a public deliberation and a public vote.
Amen.
And what's happened instead, under current House leadership, under, I should say, past House leadership, or because of lobbying of various entities and associations, those bills were closed quietly behind closed doors so members wouldn't have to vote on them publicly. I would have been proud to vote on that bill publicly. And thankfully, under House leadership, we'll get the chance to vote on bills like that. Good bills like that to help people.
Actually, let me just point out that bill was designed to help victims of tornadoes here in Collin County. Right. So I know I was at Harvey all day listening to people talk about losing their homes in a flood and hurricane, but it was about us, the losses that we suffer from either a hailstorm or a tornado.
Well, Senator Taylor, on that same note, I know that districts pay recapture based on their previous year's values, and Houston is now in recapture. I know there's been talk to give assistance to them because they can't pay that based on last year's property values. Do you know how that's being resolved?
That I left the hearing when they started going in.
Oh, okay. Because I know that's been a conversation.
That is going to have to be part of the conversation. It is. President Humphrey raises a good point. It's more complicated than just reappraisal. But for school districts, everybody else, it's that simple.
Okay.
Any thoughts on bills regarding taxpayer-funded lobbyists?
Every session I follow it's not that. You probably don't know this, but your tax dollars, part of your tax dollars, are used by your local governments to hire lobbyists to go down in Austin and lobby against your best interests.
Yes.
2,000 of them. And I'm actually on a panel next Thursday. Texas Public Policy Foundation is having a series of events next week. I'll be on the panel talking about taxpayer-funded lobbying. So it's funny when I know we're running late, so
I know.
stop.
It's okay.
So when we walk onto the floor of the House, there's this big open area that we have to walk through. Well, there are like dozens and dozens and dozens of lobbyists. And they're usually pretty pleasant. Maybe they'll grab you when they talk to you about stuff. Man, I filed that bill. I got these nasty looks as I'm walking through that. It was totally ticked off. But anyhow, that's a battle we're going to continue to fight.
That's when you do one of these.
Pretending you have to. Okay, all right. You know what? It's 8:30, so let's wrap up and.
get one of these?